10 years. It's been 10 years since I played my first game in this fantastic series. I remember that August day vividly. We were in Germany visiting some family friends that lived there. I was 5 years old and all the other kids were playing Brawl in the basement. I remember going down there, picking up that Wii remote, and for the first time ever, playing as Sonic. That will be a memory that will be in my heart forever. And with Super Smash Bros. Ultimate coming out very soon, what better time is there to do this countdown? Now while I could talk about all the rumors and possible DLC, I'd rather talk about my experiences with this franchise. So today, I present to you my top 5 Super Smash Bros. Games. I will be ranking these games based on its new additions to the series, roster, music, presentation, game modes, and nostalgia. Anyway, let's get ready to settle it in Smash. The game that started it all and arguably one of the most impactful games on the N64. We have the bottom spot on this list, the original Super Smash Bros. Now, don't think I'm hating on the classics, because there is a lot to love about this game. Nintendo knew what they were doing with this first game, and the roster is the best of the best. Every single character is deserving to be in the group known as the original 12. Each character feels like they represent various aspects of themselves and the franchise they come from, with my main being Link, as well as Pikachu and Luigi. And this game is still a fun time to be had with friends, and the multiplayer is the main aspect of this game. While classic mode is still fun, and break the targets and board the platforms are a ton of fun, with the former being, in my opinion, tied for the best in the franchise, playing rounds with friends is still very fun. No stage is bad. Sector Z and Silphco are my favorite. The items are all good, and no character is too OP. However, being the first in the franchise, it is lacking in a few other things that every other game in the franchise doesn't. Yes, I do understand that you shouldn't judge the first game in the franchise for not having certain things that its sequels did due to their console's stronger hardware. However, the lack of a strong single-player mode prevents me from coming back to this game a lot. And at times I do play this game with friends, I do have fun. However, since it almost rarely happens, since they would rather play newer Smash Bros. Games or let alone other multiplayer games, it is hard to sit down and play this game for a long period of time like I can with other games. It also doesn't help that this game isn't the best to look at. I realize that this is on the Nintendo 64, but some of the character models just look bad. Compare Mario 64 Mario to Super Smash Bros. Mario. You'll understand what I'm saying. And the lack of replayability is what puts this game at the number 5 spot. When I first heard that the 3DS was getting a Super Smash Bros. Game, I was so excited. In fact, I thought that this game was going to be better than the Wii U version of the game. Well, turns out that things aren't always as you envision them. Don't get me wrong, this game is an amazing game. Tons of great fun to be had, and a lot of aspects that are better than its home console brother. Having a Smash Bros. Game on the go is one of the greatest things ever. I remember playing it for hours when it came out with my best friend at the time, playing non-stop. This was the first Super Smash Bros. Game I was able to experience the hype train for, and like I mentioned earlier, some aspects of this game are better than Super Smash Bros. For Wii U. The graphics and music are amazing, just like every Super Smash Bros. Game. Classic mode is a lot better in this version, having a lot more variety instead of just being a bunch of random 8-player battles. Smash Run is, in my opinion, the best game mode in Smash Bros. History that is not a story mode, with every single time that you're playing it being different and always a ton of fun. And it's also so much fun to see all the variety of Nintendo baddies in this large and open world. And the game is able to run so smoothly even on the original 3DS. Each character plays so well, with my main being Kirby, with Sheik and Captain Falcon up there too. And the stages on this version are great, with most of them being from handheld games. My favorites being Spirit Train, Tortimer Island, Rainbow Road, Gerudo Valley, Paper Mario, and holy shit, Magic Hand. But what makes this game lower on the list than others? I never seem to come back to it. And the main reason is the online aspect. Don't get me wrong, the online on this version is amazing, but I'd rather play the Wii U version for online, which is the main thing that brings me back to it. But whenever I'm on a long plane ride, I'll always pop this one into my 3DS for a good time. Let's go back in time to when I was in first grade. My brother's friend at the time showed me his YouTube channel and showed me a video that my brother was in. In it, they were all playing Super Smash Bros. Melee, with my brother being Marth, his friend being Pichu, for some odd reason, and another friend being Kirby. Even though my brother had never played before, he won, and after that moment I wanted to play that game. I got my hands on it, and I loved it. I remember the feeling of unlocking every character for the first time and the satisfaction of doing it, and then having to do it about 20 times until I finally found the memory card. I remember when I eventually played my brother's friend and beat him and the satisfaction of doing so. Super Smash Bros. Melee will go down in history as one of the greatest games of all time, but I don't love it as much as others do. The competitive scene has almost ruined coming back to it for me. Every time that someone says that Melee is the greatest game of all time and every other Smash game is shit compared to it, it makes me disappointed when my hopes are too high whenever I go back to this game after not having played it for a while. But there still is a fuck ton of fun to be had. This was the first game with adventure mode, and it was great. Being able to explore a variety of Nintendo worlds was always a blast to do, and while I do prefer a certain other adventure mode more than this one, it is still a ton of fun. Overall, everything was improved from Smash 64. Break the Targets is the best that's ever been in this series. It introduced so many awesome game modes and options, including multi-man melee, the collectible trophies, and most importantly, event matches. And most of all, the roster and stages has increased tremendously. Going from 9 to 29 stages, this game introduced a ton of variety, with my standouts being On It, Corneria, Pokemon Stadium, Great Bay, Temple, Green Greens, and my favorite, Fountain of Dreams. And oh my god, the characters. This game went from 12 to 26 new fighters, including popular characters from the Turning series, and bringing new series such as the Japan-only Fire Emblem into the Smash roster, with my main being Roy as well as Kirby and Marth. The impact of this game is astounding, but if you're watching this video, you probably knew that already. And while it's not my favorite Smash Bros. Game, I can understand why it is for so many people. At the number 2 spot, we have the most recent game to have been released, Super Smash Bros. For Wii U. Great name, right? The presentation of this game is beautiful. Being the first one in HD, it astounds me how beautiful it is. And this is by far the best soundtrack of any fighting game I've ever played, with beautiful remixes and great classics brought back. And the gameplay is fixed up everywhere it matters. I found a mix between Melee's super fast pace and what other people believed Brawl's slow paced movement was, and it's perfect. There's not a dull moment when playing this game, especially with the great online features. While the 3DS version also had it, it is not as good as it is here. This game introduced For Glory and one-on-one matches. This is what I always go to when playing this game. And to add to the competitive scene, this game introduced Omega forms of stages. Now you can play every stage in a Final Destination form, and it's awesome. But that doesn't take away from the regular stages. My favorites being Woolly World, Orbital Gate Assault, Kalos Pokemon League, Coliseum, and most of all, Gower Plains and Gamer. But going back to the online, this is the main reason I keep coming back to this game, and I believe that even after Ultimate is released, people will continue to go back to this online just because of how much fun the gameplay is. This game also introduced 8-player Smash, which is a blast with friends. While I don't have as many memories of playing this game with friends, since this game was released right before everybody started to actually be busy with shit, I still had a blast with this game. And the roster. While it is the same as the 3DS version, the controls are much better, making it more fun to use them. With my mains being Kirby, Shulk, Ganondorf, Jigglypuff just for fun, and most of all, Lucas. And speaking of Lucas, this game was the first Smash Bros. Game to have DLC. And while it was definitely overpriced, it was still a blast to have a ton of veterans return and a variety of newcomers introduced. I'm still baffled as to how Cloud got in, despite Sakurai saying that they have to be in a game on a Nintendo platform, and no, I do not count these. However, if it wasn't for these things, this game would be worse than the 3DS version in my opinion. And that's because this game is heavily lacking on certain aspects. There is no story/adventure mode, Break the Targets was removed, Classic mode is in my opinion the worst in the series history, and the Wii U exclusive mode Smash Tour is nowhere near as fun as Smash Run. Despite these large negatives, everything else hits it out of the park in an almost perfect way, putting this game at the number 2 spot. You already know what number 1 is, so let's go to it. By process of elimination, or just by the beginning of this video, you could have guessed that this would be the number 1 spot on the list. And I can already guess that there will be a few people that disagree with me on this, but I'm proud to have Super Smash Bros. Brawl as my favorite Super Smash Bros. Game. In my opinion, this game does everything stellarly. Not perfectly, but in a way done so well that despite the fact that certain parts aren't as good as other games in this series, it is still good enough to be excused. Let's just start off with the most important part of any Smash Bros. Game, the characters. In my opinion, this is the most refined roster. This was the first game in the series to cut characters from a previous game, and those cuts make sense. And the new characters introduced all make sense and are important to their respective franchises, with new franchises like Pikmin and Kid Icarus being introduced to Smash for the first time. And most of all, this was the first game to have third-party characters with Snake from Metal Gear Solid and Sonic from Sonic the Hedgehog. These introductions opened the floodgates and allowed characters that we have now like Mega Man, Pac-Man, Ryu, Ken, Cloud, Bayonetta, and Simon and Richter to be an ultimate. My mains in this game have to be Kirby, Captain Falcon, Sheik, Pit, and most of all, Lucas. The stages for this game are also great, with my favorites being Battleship Harbor, PictoChat, Pirate Ship, Pokemon Stadium 2, Delfino Plaza, Smashville, WarioWare, and Green Hill Zone. The game modes are also amazing. Classic mode is as great as ever. All-Star mode is probably tied for the best in the series with Melee in my opinion. Multi-Man Brawl is still fun. Events are still a fuck ton of fun, introducing co-op events to add to the fun. Break the Targets, while not as fun as before, is still decent despite what a ton of other people say. Masterpieces being a good concept, and while it wasn't executed amazingly, it is still great. Stage Builder that I had a ton of fun with in Special Smash. While not being something that I used much, the few times I did use it led to a lot of fun with friends. And that fun with friends is the main thing that I will take away from this game. I remember going back to this game even after Smash 4 came out. Every single kid at my school had this game, and I remember the satisfaction of when I finally beat the best kid at my school in a match with him as Wolf and me as Kirby. I miss those days so much. I'm Mustafa, and wait, you really think I couldn't talk about the two biggest things added to this game? Beginning with the online play, when it did work, and it actually did work a lot more than other people said it did for me, I had a blast. And while I got destroyed every single time, elementary school me I still had a ton of fun. But that isn't what people remember this game for. It's for the Subspace Emissary, this game's story mode. While it doesn't have the nostalgia of exploring other Nintendo worlds, it is so massive and so much fun to play that I don't care. Also, seeing all these Nintendo characters interacting with each other is in some ways better than what Melee had. A lot of people complained about how long it was, how the story mode is repetitive and monotonous, but the amount of hours I've spent on it begged to differ. I remember I would play through the entire story mode once a week for the longest time, and over the summer just to make sure that it wasn't nostalgia goggles that caused me to defend it, I replayed it. And it was just as fun, if not more than I remember. This game is overhated, and while I can understand why competitive players don't like it, their thoughts will never ruin my enjoyment, and it shouldn't ruin yours. So go into Ultimate with an open mind and have as much fun and make as many memories as you can. I'm Mustafa, and Super Smash Bros. Brawl is my favorite game of all time.